Howdy, folks. Grok the DuckFarmer here, and I'm playing Feed the Beast Evolution on the FTOG server. And I've got a thing I want to build, and I'll do some discussing as to why I'm doing this, because fun. So one of the things that I've been doing for a long time is I like playing Dungeons and Dragons. I remember as a kid scraping together allowance with my brothers, and we bought the first edition, although it was just advanced D&D back then. There was no first edition name for it. We got the no, we got the player handbook. That was the first thing we spent our money on, and it was like $19, which for us in, let's see, this would be 79, I think it was, maybe 80. One of those years. We didn't have much money, and that was significant, but we loved it. We ended up getting that, and then later the Monster Manual, and then the Dungeon Master's Guide, and we played so much D&D. It was just a blast, and we did tons and tons of stuff with the first edition. And I seem to recall interacting a little bit with the basic edition and the version that came before that, but nothing that I had purchased. It was just other kids, and we were playing that at school. Anyway, did that a ton. Played some in college with some friends, and then just life didn't have much availability for me to play. Second edition came out, and I really wasn't doing anything at that point. Third edition and 3.5 came out, and again, I wasn't doing anything with it. And then about 15 years ago, this kid in the neighborhood came up to me and said, hey, Grok, I understand that you play D&D. I said, well, yes, I do. And I had no idea how he figured that out, other than maybe he saw the first edition books on my bookshelf. And he was saying, hey, could we get a game session together? And I said, yeah, we could do that. And the reason why he wanted to do that was because of his friend. Now, I'm just going to call him Frank. Frank had an accident. He was out in the canyons near the place hiking with his family, and he slipped and fell about 100 feet, which is most of the time fatal for people. But he actually survived and was bedridden for a long time. How am I missing some blocks? Huh. Anyway, so he was bedridden for some time, and I watched him from death's door to eventually they were saying, okay, yeah, it looks like he's going to live, but so many broken bones, so many internal injuries, so many problems. And well, fast forward some time, he actually was able to sit up, and they could wheel him around in a wheelchair. And his friends were saying, we would like to do something with him that would be doable, because before he loved to do cross country running and stuff like that, and that's not a thing. And so they were saying, hey, D&D would work because it's just rolling dice and playing with paper. So that's a possibility. We could do that with him. I said, sounds like a very, very good idea. So we started that, and they were all in high school at this point, like 9th, 10th, 11th, grades like that. And so we started the play session, and I watched him over the years that we played this go from barely being able to sit in a wheelchair to moving around in the wheelchair under his own power, which was very nice. Then there were times that he started using a crutch to get around, and then those little arm braces, and then all he needed was an extra pad to sit on the chair, because we had wooden chairs 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So it was just fantastic watching him get better and better and better. One of the things that we had done before his accident, we had made some foam weapons and played with that, and just had an absolute blast beating each other up with these little foam weapons. Did that as part of a Boy Scout troop thing. And then later, after he had a much better improvement. We made some more foam weapons again, because this would be like 4 years later. We made some more foam weapons again and ran around and beat each other with that in between the game sessions. We'd start off with little padded weapon battles, play some D&D, go back and beat each other some more for as a break in between. It was just loads of fun. And while he wasn't fast, because I don't think he's ever really going to run again, he was able to keep up with everybody. Just fantastic. So this was something that Mrs. the Duck Farmer called the Nerd Brigade, because they had so much fun coming over and would be very geeky and nerdy about playing D&D. And it was a blast. It was just a massive blast. Just enjoyed it so much. And one of those things that it was just a real pleasure, both watching these boys grow up and then also watching them become better people. Mrs. the Duck Farmer, accused me of running a training session for the boys, in that I was sitting there teaching them more than just, here, look, we're going to play D&D. We were also talking about cooperations and manners and all sorts of things like that. And so it was a blast. It was like a finishing school for young gentlemen. Snuck into the D&D lessons as well. Oh, there it is. I was wondering where that polished andesite went. And so just a blast. And the campaign was, as pretty much everybody was graduating from high school and they were going to go off. We had to end the campaign, and so we ended it on a high note, and it was loads of fun. Well, this kid's younger brother showed up like the last year that we were playing, and he was 10, and about that point, and he was having loads and loads of fun with the rest of us. And when the game was over, he was saying, "Hey, could I invite my friends and we could do some playing with this?" And I said, "Sure, why not? Let's go ahead and do that." And so the version 2 of the Nerd Brigade kicked in, and we oh, hey, don't break the walls, leave the walls. So we started doing that some more and just having an absolute blast with that. Then I moved from there. We actually got a home instead of renting, and I was thinking, it'd be kind of nice to do the D&D thing again. I would like to do that, and so we set that up as an online thing. That's been going on now for over 4 years. Just a little bit over 4 years now. And it's coming to a close, which is why I'm kind of thinking about stuff and building this here. And I shall explain. This is what the party is going to encounter as they play. As of recording right now, as this is releasing today, there are 3 sessions left in this D&D campaign. And the first thing that these guys are going to encounter today is this. And so it's been on my mind, and I was just saying, hey, I want to actually see if I can build this in Minecraft. Yeah, that kind of works. And unfortunately, I'm really limited to the blocky nature of Minecraft to build these things. But yeah, there we go, all done. So it's been 4 years, and they've encountered bad guy after bad guy after bad guy, and finally they're coming up with the last big bad. And one of the things that's I really like about Dungeons and Dragons is I played as a cooperative storytelling, and I'm waving my hands like you can see this, where I've got a framework, but I also allow the other players to contribute stories and what they want to do. So the big bad guy is the high priest of death, and he's trying to bring in the age of death, which is going to last about 15 minutes, and when it's over, everybody's dead. That's his goal. He's been alive for thousands of years, ever since he swore his allegiance to Lady Death and became immortal and just can't die. He's kind of done with that, and so he's ready to bring the Age of Death in and die along with everybody else. My story writing about this, I said, okay, one, I want him to look inconspicuous and not be a big threat, so he's a gnome. So he's this short, 3 foot tall gnome, but he's evil. He just doesn't look it. And at some point, for several centuries, he was by himself and was dealing with nobody or anything, and he forgot his name during that time. He completely doesn't remember his name, and so he's referred to as the Forgotten One or the Unknown One. But he's the High Priest of Death. When they first encountered him, one of the players in the party was going, "Yeah, I think I'm going to call him Larry." So he's called Larry from now on. Yeah, in game he's always referred to as the Forgotten One or the Unknown One, or just the High Priest of Death. But amongst ourselves, he's Larry, which I think is absolutely hilarious. Anyway, so this is the first room in the Temple of Death, and the parties come in. They'll come into this circular area. Let's see if I can gently fly in. Yay! All right. It's a circular area. Again, Minecraft, it's all blocky. There are 3 sets of gold statues, which should be taller than this, but I didn't want them to be too wide. This is good enough for a very blocky statue, and they're supposed to be facing towards the center. And yeah, hello Minecraft, can't really do that. But so there's these 4 ginormous gold statues in here. And there's a centerpiece that they will encounter. Now, I've got bone blocks here, but it's really an ivory cone here that truncates down to something fairly small at the top. Yeah, Minecraft, you can't do that. But it's bleeding out of the top. That's why I got the little redstone here. And there's a pool of blood around it. This pack doesn't actually have any red fluid I could play with. Otherwise, I'd try, blood or maybe redstone, if it were liquid, and see if I could waterlog this and actually make a pool. Nope, not not in the pack. And plus, there's an altar on the far end, and this is what the party will see as I describe it as they enter into this area, and then fun stuff will happen. And now that I'm looking at this, it's even across here, so I could have the double doors. I like those, but I also want to have a central single pillar, and it's not exactly centered. Oh well, what can you do with Minecraft and its blockiness? But it's gonna be fun. These last final 3 episodes, we've been playing 4th edition of D&D, and part of the reason why I did that is while I was playing with the first group, it was all 1st edition stuff because I had all the books, and version 3.5 was out, and they were just rolling out the 4.0 or the version 4, and I was going, I'm not buying all those books. But I looked at one, and I was reading at it in the bookstore, and I went, I kind of like that. I kind of like that. Oh, that's really cool. 4th edition has a bad rep amongst the D&D crowd, because when Wizard of the Coast wanted to set this up, they really wanted to attract the gamers, and so it's very gametic, very very game centric. Instead of talking about feet, each block is 5 feet, but everything's talked about in squares as opposed to 5 feet blocks. It's the same thing that you have in 5th edition. It's just 5 feet instead of a square. But the thing that's really that really impressed me about 4th edition is very balanced amongst all the different player classes. Plus, they officially described the concept of roles. So in fourth edition, they talk about 4 different roles a player can fulfill, and they can either do one role, or they may have, you know, a primary this with a secondary that. And the 4 roles are controllers, defenders, leaders, and strikers. And when I read this and I read their description, I said, this exists in first edition. And it does. It exists in all the editions, but it wasn't really called out till fourth. And then they pitched it for fifth. But a controller is like your wizard type. They control the battlefield. They're stunning, they're dazing, they're immobilizing, they're casting wide area effects on multiple creatures, like a fireball, where it's not doing huge amounts of damage, but it's damaging lots. Moving them around. Controllers are fantastic. A wizard is your classic controller type. Then there's defenders. Those are the tanks. High armor, high hit points. They go out into the front of the battle, and they are just that meat shield that stops anything from getting past. And they have abilities that if the fight is targeting other people, they get to respond. And so, you know, a classic fighter is a tank like that. You know, massive armor, shields, weapons. You know, they're doing damage, not massive amounts of damage, but they are the ones that laugh as the incoming strikes come in. You know, they're going, ha, I laugh in high AC. Then there's leaders, and they are making the other players better. They're directing the fight. They're buffing their friends. They're healing the party. They're throwing out commands of, hey, go hit him, you know, as an extra attack. Bards, warlords, those are leaders. The clerics, they're all leaders that help make the party be better. And then there's strikers, and a rogue is a classic striker type. Not as much hit points or armor, but fast, and they run in and they do a lot of damage to a single target. And just, you know, hammer, 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 you know, lots of damage. And then they run away, typically because they don't have much armor. And those 4 types, you look at the various classes that you play, they are all one of those. Or you could play where, you know, one of our characters plays as a striker, but has a lot of defender in there too. Or somebody, you know, there was another, in the first group, there was a controller who also was on a secondary striker, just doing a lot of damage to the people around, as well as knocking down and controlling, and fun. Anyway, I really like the way they called that out. In the other thing that was really good with 4th edition that was introduced was the concept of feats. And maybe 3rd edition had it, but I never really did anything with those books. But as I found the book, I was going, ooh, I really like these feats. Let me incorporate that into 1st edition gameplay. And there was other stuff I said, ooh, I really like this. Let me incorporate that into 1st edition gameplay. And then finally, I bought enough of the 4th edition books because they were really nice. I said, okay, with the next campaign, we'll just make it 4th edition going forward. And so this current campaign and the previous one, all 4th edition. And 5th edition came out, and I said, I don't want to pick it up. It has a lot of the flavor of 1st edition with the imbalances that were there. And so I said, no. I've already done 1st edition and imbalances, and so no, I'm not going to do that. Plus, I don't want to buy the books. And because there's a lot of books, I don't want to buy a 3rd set of books. 4th edition is super well balanced, and also 4th edition, the level cap goes all the way up to level 30. 5th edition, it's 20. So I'm able to get them 10 additional levels of experience in gameplay. I'm going to do that. And at this point, everybody is level 30, and several of them have been level 30 for quite a while, so that they can have all that good experience. It's fantastic. If I had infinite money, then yeah, I could jump into 5th edition, but I'm going, no, 4th edition works for what I have. And so I'm going to stick with that. So that's the way it is. Anyway, I've got more to ramble on, but I'm going to close the video. And those who want to stick around and listen to a little bit of philosophy and how many of the players I think are going to die this next session, stick around. Anyway, this has been Grok the DuckFarmer here, building the first room for the Temple of Death for my session, which this released. This video releases about 7 hours before the gameplay will start, and I'm curious to see how many of the guys playing will have watched this first. Spoiler. Anyway, I'm perfectly okay with spoiling just how this room is going to lay out because they're going to experience it within 5 minutes of starting the game. So not a problem. But anyway, been playing Feed the Beast Evolution here on the FTOG server and having a blast. I'm going to have the third to last session in D&D today as this is being posted. And thanks for watching. Bye. All right, still around? Cool. So um, I was saying that I think some of these guys, the players, are going to die today. My guess is 3. Of the 6 players that are playing, I'm going to guess we're going to have at least 3 player deaths, and we'll see how my prediction works. One of the things I really like about having a D&D session that I haven't come up with is I get to control the narrative. And I like a narrative where there's layers of bad guys. So the party arrived. The world is a desert world, and there's only 3 valleys where life exists. Everything else on the surface of the world is burnt, and just those 3 valleys dominated by deserts. And life is hard. So they arrived at this place. They did some fighting and encountering some stuff, and meeting NPCs and all that stuff. And they realized at the end of the first chapter, and my entire campaign has 11 chapters. They just kind of organically appeared. But chapter 1, they got to about level 3 by the end of that. A bunch of different sessions. Anyway, they realized that there was somebody manipulating people, different groups, to fight each other and cause conflicts. And they eventually found out this person was called Blackhammer. And they were going, aha, bad guy. And he was the bad guy that they had to deal with. By about level 8, they actually encountered him, but he was in disguise. They didn't realize this. It turns out Blackhammer was a dwarf. And one of the things I have loads of fun with this is kind of changing the normal dynamics of the different player races and mob types, in that the first big bad is a dwarf. They tend to be good. Not in this case. He was a bad guy. He was trying to recover the kingship that was lost from his grandfather as he was overthrown by the other dwarves. And he managed to survive and had been plotting revenge for many decades to get back his power. And the party encountered him by about level 8ish or so, and it was around about level 12 that they finally cornered him to a position and were able to defeat him. And while they were defeating him, I had to reveal the next big bad. So there was this floating head that was watching this fight and making snarking comments, and he was just saying, all right, if you, Blackhammer, if you survive, great. If you don't, oh well, sucks to be you. You're suffering pain. Because this guy was the high priest of the Lady Pain. And so he was willing to, let the chips fall as they may, and the party won that battle. And he then introduced himself and told them, yeah, you better not mess with me, because I have a plan and I have things that need to be done. And he was the big bad for the next 10-some levels. So about level 20, 22 or so, they actually finally had a confrontation with him, and he was spreading destruction and pain all over the place, and he died. And then there was a little bit of a power void, but it was revealed through gameplay that Blackhammer had been manipulated like a marionette, a little puppet, by somebody else pulling the strings, and that was Zareth, the high priest of pain. He was pulling Blackhammer's strings, and it was revealed that somebody behind was pulling Zareth's strings. There was another layer of bad guy. And then beyond him, there were several other figures pulling the strings on him. Well, Larry, the High Priest of Death, is the third layer, and that's who they're confronting now. But their strings being pulled on him. I just like layers of plot, and so I work for that. I live for that. I think that makes much more fun storytelling. Plus, I also really enjoy it when, as a collaborative story process, the players contribute. And I'll give you an example of that. One of the players, Thundy, is a shard mind. It's a creature built out of chunks of crystal, all floating around, vaguely humanoid in shape. And he chose that his crystal color would be white. So think of several thousands little from thumb size to a little bit bigger crystals swirling around in a vaguely humanoid shape. Well, fairly early on, they encountered a purple-black crystal that was very evil. It was summoning undead, and they had a zombie invasion. And at one point, he touched it. And he came afterwards and said, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if, because I'm a crystal and it was a crystal and it was evil, if it somehow corrupted me?" I said, "Oh, do tell." So we spent the time discussing the idea of, because he touched it, it would start corrupting him over time. And we described how there would be flashes of that purple black in his normal white that would appear and then disappear, that the people would notice. And I dropped those hints to the various players. And then he would also say things that were a little bit more evil as they were played along. Stuff like, they were having some diplomatic negotiations with a city, and he would say stuff like, "Well, why don't we just kill everybody?" That's kind of the opposite of diplomacy, but so eventually we planned on, he would go full bad. All his color would change to purple black, and he would just start attacking everybody. And in the middle of a market square, he just started unleashing spells all over the place. It was fun because the party had to stop him. They pretty much just had to kill him at that point, which is okay because you've got spells to revive the players, which is because you're having too much fun to just die and then say, "Well, that's the end of that character." Anyway, so they had to stop him, but before that, he managed to kill a whole bunch of the goblins that were there in the marketplace. And now that he'd been cured, he now owed a blood debt to the goblins for what he did. So they weren't saying, "Give us money." No, they were too proud for that. And again, subverting the normal roles. Goblins and all the races there is no good races or evil races. They're just different people. And the goblins getting along with everybody else. Every race type is crammed into these three small valleys. There's not room for the normal animosities, to work out. That everybody has to work together to be able to survive. So these goblins, they were fine part of the citizenry of the city, and Thundy obliterated a whole bunch of them. So they were saying, "Yeah, if you do these tasks for us and you recover these things, that will allow us to continue to survive. We'll have business, we'll have new tools, we'll have stuff that we can use to be able to, keep the families living." So they were given 4 different quests by the 4 matriarchs of the goblin families to do various things. So from the one suggestion of, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if I got corrupted?" We had 4, 5, 6 sessions where he got more and more corrupted, and then the final fight. And then now they had 4 quests to go on. That moved them all over the map on 2 of the different valleys so they could explore more areas. And we also did other things. They were interacting with Black Hammer forces and other stuff in there, but they were also exploring and doing all the rest. And then eventually came back, delivered the goods, all was forgiven, and they gave a totem to the players to help them as well. And they've enjoyed that little totem because it allows them to do more damage to anything that's bigger than themselves. All of that, we're talking about half a year's worth of content, came because of the one suggestion. I love that idea. I think that's fantastic. That collaboration of, hey, what if? And I'll go, yeah, let's try that. Let's go with that. Let's do this. That's one of the things that's great about D&D, because it's theater of the mind. We're thinking about what needs to be done, and the players are just as involved in telling the story. I have the overarching plot from the very beginning. As I started, I knew the first big bad was going to be a dwarf, and his name was Blackhammer. I knew the second big bad after him, I had no idea what his name was, and I thought he was going to be. I had an idea, a vague idea, but I didn't have to write it anytime soon because I knew it'd be a year or two before we got to him. But I knew he was going to be the big bad, and he was going to be over in the second valley. Turns out he ended up being in the third. And then the third big bad, I was going to have be the ruler of the biggest city in the third valley. And that changed over time, and it became Larry, the high priest of death. And because I had the idea, and I have an idea of how everything's finishing from the very beginning, and I laid the groundwork for it. There's a principle in theater called Chekhov's gun, that he was a playwright, and basically he said, if you fire the pistol at the last act of the play, it had better be on the mantle of the fireplace in the first act. I'm horribly mangling it, but it's there. You don't do something surprising in the last act that wasn't foreshadowed early. And so I've placed some stuff in the very first chapter that will play out at the end, because I had the entire thought. My correlation or corollary of Chekhov's gun theory is, if you place a gun on the mantle in the first act, it had better be fired by the last. Don't put big foreshadowing in your stuff and never go through with it. That's dumb. Anyway, I'm having loads of fun with the story. I have no idea what to do afterwards, as far as another overarching, major story. But we're going to play a whole bunch of one-off or maybe small session things, just playing with different stuff. Maybe they will be a bunch of mercenaries for a session or two. Maybe they'll I don't want to give away too many things. Maybe a different setting, swashbuckling piratey theme sort of thing. What about Old West, where you have 6-shooters and dynamite? It's whatever your imagination can come up with, and I have lots of options plugged on the wall here on little yellow stickies of what I would like to try. And if the party goes, ooh, that was so much fun, we may make that the basis for the next overarching story arc of what we do. I don't know. I very much live on just-in-time D&D play. I have the plan of what needs to be done, but the actual individual session information depends on what the players want to do. And then I'll do that. I'll wrap up quickly. I'll do that. I'll sit there and say, okay, you're at a crossroads. You can go left and talk to these people. You can go right and talk to those people. You can go explore this area. You could go back to, the fourth area. What do you as the players want to do? And then I hear back from, oh, we really want to go back and revisit these people. There were some left over hanging, plot points that we'd like to resolve over there. And then we want to explore to the right that new forest. Okay, that's what we'll do with the next session. And I'll start putting together the mobs and the encounters and all those sort of things for that revisit and beginning, attacking the forest. And if they never choose to go to the left and investigate that old mine, okay, I never I have an idea of what will happen in there, but I haven't put time into making the maps, designing the mobs, figuring out, what the play of the encounters will be. All of that is spared because they didn't choose to go over there. And I'm still free to sit there and say, "Hey, you're at a completely different location and you found a mine." And now I can take that story that I already figured out what I wanted to do, and if they're interested in that, okay, I'll make the session for that. And so that allows the players to dictate how the game goes because we're playing it together. That's how I play D&D. Anyway, for both of you that have stuck through the additional 5 minutes, 6 minutes here as I blathered on, thank you so very much. No, I think it's like 15 minutes. Thank you very much. I just have a blast playing D&D, and I'm very curious as to how many of the people have seen this beforehand. I don't know. And I'm also very curious to see how many will die in this session. I think 3. So extra kudos to both of you that stuck through and watched this. And if you want to watch it, Haas does a stream while we play, and I'll make sure that he posts the link to that stream in the FTOG Discord. So if you want to watch them die, you can. Thanks for watching.